Hey guys, this is Vishal Dandote, and in the previous lecture, we have seen what is the Angular and how to create Angular first app, and also seen the uh, file and folder structure in the Angular. So, in this video, we will see how we can write our uh, Angular first component, and also we will see how what are the variable types or the types in TypeScript, as we are using TypeScript in the Angular application. So guys, let's start with the component creation first. So before we create the component, you should know, like, if we are using the CLI, so we can create the component using the command line interface, or we can create that manually as well. So I would suggest you, for the practicing purpose, or for beginner purpose, for few days you can create the Angular component manually, and after that you will use the Angular CLI. So it will get to know, like, what is the Angular application flow, or the Angular component flow, whenever you will create that manually. So let's see that. So whenever you need to create the component, you can goes under the app, and after that you can simply create one folder called components. And in the components folder, what we need to create, so let's say in this case, my component would be first component. So first, and then component, or okay. So in this folder, we will create one file called first dot component dot ts, which will contain all the TypeScript related code, all the logic related to component. So here, uh, we need to create another file for our component template purpose. So whenever we are writing our TypeScript code here, so we need to have a template for it. So what is the basically, before we deep dive into that, we should understand what is the component. So basically, the component is nothing but the block of HTML code which we can reuse with the different type of data. So let's create our first component, and then I will explain you why it is reusable, or how we can bind the different type of data with the Angular application or the Angular component. So let's create our first Angular component. So before we create the a template, or HTML file and CSS file for this particular component, I would like to explain you TypeScript code, because once I will explain you the TypeScript code, it will be helpful to understand those two files. So let's create our first component. For that, we need to import uh, need, we need to import the component from the Angular core library, which is already installed, or which is by default provided by the Angular framework. So here you can simply say @Angular and slash core. So you can see we are getting the suggestion from VS Code. So whenever you are using Angular library, so make sure you are using the symbol. So um, it will helpful to identify Angular. That is mean by default library in Angular application. So here you can simply say component. So yeah, this is the component, and I hope you know the concept about the import, export, and also class. It is basically coming from the um, JavaScript. If you don't know about this, you can put the comment on the video, so I will create separate video on that. So here we have import our component. So after that we need to create our metadata. So here we can simply say at the rate and component, and in this component metadata, so create our we need to write our the selector. Then here what so basically why we are using this metadata. So before we create this metadata, let me explain you a little bit more about the class. So for example, let's say we are going to create our first component. So for that I'm writing my class. So in the Angular application, all the components which we are going to create, or everything whichever we will create in the Angular application, it is the class base, because as we are using the TypeScript. So let's see how to create the class. So for that we need to simply say class, and after that first, so class name should be title case. So this is my class, right? And whenever we are creating the class, so this is the default class. It don't have any meaning. It is just simple TypeScript class. But whenever we are using the Angular application, so we using the metadata, we are telling, or we are saying Angular application or Angular framework. This is not the simple TypeScript class. So it is basically the component um, which is nothing but the Angular component. And whenever Angular application will see this metadata, it will get to know that this is not the simple class, it is the Angular component, and it will pass all the metadata for create whatever it is available in the background for creating the Angular component. So here as you can see, it has selector. So basically metadata component is nothing but the uh, a special type of function which is accepting the object, and object contain three types of properties. Selector, so basically selector is nothing but the component name, or the tag which we will going to use in the HTML file. So here I would say app and first component, like this. You can add anything, any name, whatever you want to use as a tag in HTML file. So after that we have template URL or template. So there are two ways to writing the templates in Angular component. So whenever we have single line of template, or we can create the multi-line of template as well, but I would prefer to create the separate file for the template, because it will not be complicated to handle HTML and CSS, sorry, HTML and TypeScript code in the single file. So that's why I would be using separate file for that. So template URL, and here whenever we are writing template URL, we need to pass the path for the HTML file. So as we don't have any path, I mean any file for this component HTML template, so I am just adding a single quote here. So after that we have styles URLs. So it means for this component can contain n number of CSS files. So as you can see, yes, in the naming convention, it means multiple files. So those multiple files, whenever we need to add the path, so we need to add those in the array. So here you can see, so we have template URL, we have styles URLs. So this both properties need, this need CSS file, this need HTML file path, and this need CSS file path. So for that we need to create two files. One is HTML, another one is CSS file. So let's create HTML file first. So here we can simply say first dot component dot CSS, sorry, HTML, and after that we can simply say first dot component dot CSS. So as we create HTML and CSS file, you can simply go to your component.ts file, and here you can simply say dot slash, and uh, yeah, I will get the suggestion from here. Dot slash and component dot will get the name of this file. Yeah. So component dot first dot component dot HTML, and here I would say first dot component dot CSS. As I told you, this component can have multiple CSS files. So I would create another one CSS file like first dot component dot CSS. First one dot component dot CSS. Oh, sorry, it is should be under the first component. Yeah. So as you can see, I have created another one file called first one dot css component dot css. So this is another one file for this particular component. So let's add that file URL as well in this component.ts file. So as you can see here, we have added two files for this particular component CSS files. So yeah, we have created our first component. So whenever we are creating our first component, we need to export that, because we need to register that component into the app.module.ts file. So like whenever we are using the Angular application, so we are bootstrapping our Angular application with the help of modules, and due to that, we need to we need to register all the components into the app.module.ts file. So as you can see here, I have exported my component, and here, whenever we have created our HTML file, I will add some HTML code there. So you can see, I would simply say div. Here I will add one h1, and hey first component. Yeah, and we have created our first component HTML. So let's write some CSS for that. So for that we can simply say class, and here we can say first, and we can simply get this class, and you can write CSS here. So like, as we have used these files, like whenever we are using CSS or template for this particular component, so it will be useful for this particular component only. I mean, this CSS is accessible or applicable for this particular component. It will not be applicable to other component. uh, so in a better word, the CSS which we are writing here, it is the component specific CSS. So let me add um, some CSS from this file. So here I would say color, and here we can simply say red. And in this file, we will say first, and here we can say font size or font family. And here we can say uh, what we can add. Yeah. So like this, we have added our font family from this file, first one dot component dot css, and uh, another like color from first dot component dot css. So we have successfully created our component. So once we have created our component, we need to import, or we need to inject that component into the app.module.ts file. So let's register our component there. So here you can see Module contain the declaration, imports, provider, and bootstrap. We will see little bit, module details in the next video or upcoming video. For now, let's register our component here. So you can simply say component, and you can see I have successfully import my component and register into the declare into the declarations array. So once we register our component here, and you can go to your okay, sorry. Before that, we have just register our component, but after that, we need to use our tag into the HTML file. After that, we can see the output. So here tag we have you uh, the name we which we have given for the tags, which is nothing but app first dot component. So here we can get that tag name and add that into the HTML file. So for now I will remove all the things from here, and just I will add our tag name. So you can use tag name same like as HTML. So I have used my HTML tag name like this, and I can save it and go to the browser. Once we will go to the browser, and we will open our Angular application on 4200 port, and here you can see, yes, we have successfully create our first component, and CSS have also applied to the component. So in this video we have learned how to create our first Angular component manually, and how we can uh, register that into the app.module.ts file, and also why we need to pass the metadata to component. So I hope you understand what is the component. You have understand that, and we will see the uh, how to create a component with the CLI in the upcoming video. Thank you so much, guys. We will see in the next video. Bye.